Hello, everyone, and welcome to Spilled Popcorn. This is episode 3 of Loki. If you're joining us, things are getting crazy. You know what I don't have? I've had a lot of props on this show and on our main podcast, Popcorn for Breakfast, but I don't have anything Loki. Maybe we need to look into that, or if someone out there has something and they could send our way, I would love it. I would love to have the monocle or whatever it is. Monocle's not the right word, but Cam, help me out here. How are you doing today?
Doing great. I do have a couple of Loki Funko Pops, but they're out in my MCU Avengers area of Funko Pops. I've got them all organized because I'm weird. But yeah, I could always bring those in, but I only have 2 of them, 2 Lokis.
Bring him in for episode 4 next week, so you can hold him up. I don't know. I've never seen, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I haven't looked deep enough. Is there like a Loki costume that I could wear while we do this podcast that I could get before next week?
Probably. I mean, Amazon is an amazing place. There's no shortage of things you could get there. There's probably a Prime Loki costume, or even just the horns. You know,
just the horns, right?
That's pretty much all you need.
And I just saw that Spirit Halloween is hiring in our local area, so hopefully the Halloween store is going to have a Loki costume this year.
Rocking and rolling probably over there. They're like, let's go.
They're going to have like just stuff from the series though. Like it'll be like super easy, like the variant jacket with a suit and tie. They're like, we got this. Not like OG Loki, you know? So that's what I want.
Dude, that would actually probably be a pretty easy Halloween costume. I think you just gave me an idea. Just the variant jacket. You can just get like orange spray paint and a stencil.
Yeah.
Done. Tan khaki jacket. Easy.
Yes. Head to Goodwill. Oh, it'd be so good. Well, I look forward to seeing you that in a couple of months here.
We'll make it happen.
Mr. Loki. Awesome. So we're halfway there. All I can think about is the Bon Jovi song, but I want to know, how did you feel about this episode? If it delivered, if it was confusing, or if it was underwhelming?
I liked this episode. I really did. I thought it was among the more entertaining in a different way. This wasn't the kind of episode that has lots of cloak and dagger, lots of intrigue, lots of Easter eggs and fun things to dig into. But this was sort of the character grind episode, you know, where we have to build relationships, build bridges, and kind of get to the crux of what's going on with our new characters. But all that said, I liked it. I liked it a lot.
I felt that I was unfortunately a little underwhelmed with this episode. I got to come clean here at the top of the show because I felt like it had all of the great elements to be so great, but there was just some sort of magic missing in it. And there was plenty of magic to go around in this episode. Enchantment and the fireworks coming out of Loki's hand. You know, I felt like those were some poignant moments that could have been hit in a different way. Now, I don't know how to do that because I'm not a director, but I felt that we were missing something just like it just missed the mark for me on all of its big moments. So let's talk deeply about this episode. Are you ready, Cam?
I was born ready. Let's go.
The unwrapping.
Yes.
Real quick, because we have lots of butter and speculation to go on here. So just the highlights here. We get into this episode and we have some killer green screen studio landscape of this dying planet. What was the name of this planet again, Cam?
Oh, Lord.
Was it Lamentis?
Lamentis 1. That's what. Yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
Excellent. I thought I was just making that up in my mind, so I just wanted to cross-check it and have a sounding board. So Lamentis 1, this planet's dying. This is where Lady Loki / Sylvie, as we get her full name in this episode, as revealed and as correctly proven by Cam in our last episode. Bravo.
Yes. I was right about one thing for once. Yes.
So he goes into the portal, he follows her in, and they're on Lamentis, this dying planet. So things are crazy. We obviously saw them in Pompeii in the last episode, but there's a different feel for this because they know what's happening in this, but their temp pad that's allowing them to travel through the different portals has been, it's running out of power. By the end of the episode, it's destroyed. So the one way that they can get out of this situation is to do the impossible thing that no one in any variant of that timeline has done, is to actually get off of the planet in the ship, which, correct me if I'm wrong, it does get destroyed by the end of this episode, correct?
The ship?
Yes. In a big way.
I think the moon thing like crashes into it. right?
That's right. Just like obliterates it after this very long technical scene with the camera and camera tricks where you're just like, are they going to get there? And they do not. Let me back up. We have some fun hijinks that ensue to get to know Loki and Sylvie. Several different spots where they kind of take cover until they get to this train on Lamentus that's going to get them to the ship. So there's some really funny, silly stuff where they kind of poke fun at each other, like, I'm the smarter one, I'm the better trickster, and Loki ends up masking himself as a guard and walking Sylvie into the train, but he doesn't quite get there, and she also has to assist. So very fun, very playful. These two actors together have a lot of good chemistry, which is exciting. And then the biggest thing here, Cam said, is a big character dev episode. Big one, reminiscent of season, season, let's say 4 of The Walking Dead, where you just have 2 characters for like 6 episodes, just trying to figure out who they are and where they're going. This one kind of felt like that. It was better, obviously, for obvious reasons, but it was better because it's tied to the bigger stakes of the Marvel universe. So that went on throughout the entire episode, beginning, middle, and end. And of course, as I mentioned, that technical aspect of the finale of the fate of our 2 antagonists, where the ship blows up. Those are the big things. Those are the highlights. Anything I missed in there, Cam, that stood out to you?
I really liked that. I feel like from a production standpoint, this show has a very different feel in terms of like cinematography and style, which I'm enjoying, actually. I feel like that's what kept me in it. I feel like, and I'm forgetting the name of the technology. They have a name for this now, but those virtual sets that they use in The Mandalorian were certainly at play on this moon. You could kind of tell with the way the characters were interacting as they were like running across the landscape as like asteroids are coming down. And I don't know. I liked the colors. I liked the feel and the camera work. It was pretty cool, especially that last scene where they're kind of like trying to get to the ship and they're having to like beat people up on their way to get to it. It just had a really good style and flair to it.
Yeah, I forget the technical name too, but basically instead of all green screens, you have this completely immersive these flat screen panels. So just giant televisions surrounding you that they're projecting the image that they want. So instead of projecting it later, it's there. It's physically there. And it definitely felt like this was used at least on part of this episode, if not most of it. You're exactly right. Good eye, Cam. So I want to find out what that technical term is so we can speak more on that.
I see people tweet about it all the time. That's why it's bothering me so much. But Ewan McGregor was talking about it recently as they're making the Kenobi show, because he constantly talks about how the prequel Star Wars movies were horrible because they were all green screen. Like 90% of the scenes were in front of green screen. And now that he's shooting Kenobi and they have the virtual sets, he's like, oh my gosh, this is such a game-changing experience.
Yes, and blue screen. They did a lot of blue screen, in fact, too, for those prequels, which was like, whoa, it's gonna be better. That was the what you call, I don't want to say the lie that was told to us, but at least that's what they told us as we were going into it. I can't tell you how many behind the scenes I saw of blue screens before the prequels came out.
Yes.
Oh, I love it. Well, let's get into the butta. The great points there, Cam. The butta. We want to talk about some great, wonderful things that happen in here. So I basically just crapped on a little bit of this 2 character scenario, but ultimately it worked. It worked really well for Loki and Sylvie. From them meeting each other, it was really fascinating to see how they basically assumed they knew everything about the other Loki. And then as they kept talking, they started getting confused at each other and like, well, don't you feel this about this? Wasn't your past like this and like this? And so all of a sudden they found that they actually did live very different lives. And though they sort of have this kinship to each other, ultimately they're 2 completely different people. How'd you feel about that aspect of their relationship?
Yeah, I think it's important. I think it's important for Marvel to lay the ground rules of, time displaced variants, for lack of a better term. I mean, this is really the first time that we've had it in the MCU where you've got 2 characters who are the same person, just in a different reality. And so they had to establish, like, here's how that functions. These are the same person per se, meaning they're the same person in their timeline, their universe, but they are different people in terms of their experiences. Obviously, in this case, their primary gender, since one is a female most of the time, our Loki is male most of the time up till now. So, I think it's an important moment. And I think that scene at when they're on like the Snowpiercer train on that planet, like they're calling it the Ark, but it's basically the same thing. That scene is great for so many reasons, because you get to hear them talk about their differences. You get to hear a little bit about Sylvie, but you also get to hear Loki like talk about his life, which is something that we just haven't gotten much of. Like, he's talking about his adopted mother, Frigga, which, to all the comic book fans, I'm sure everybody was swooning over that, because he does love his mom. And that was evidenced by the scene where he saw her die, when he's looking into how the future will unfold, that she will die because of something that he did. So it was a great moment, that two character dynamic, particularly at that scene when they're in the restaurant on the train, was excellent.
Yep. I also love how you said this is our first exposure to really lay the groundwork for a variant timeline character meeting each other, because we had Captain America in Endgame, but they were from the same timeline,
Exactly,
the same timeline.
right.
So they were the exact same person, just at different points of the timeline. So very good call out there, as always. So it was very cool to see this interaction. That was very fascinating and very well done. Anything else catch your attention deeply in this episode?
Well, I think the somewhat big reveal comes early and then midway through the episode, where Sylvie is inside the mind of that Minuteman soldier, the female minute woman. I don't know, and is using her memories to create a like a landscape where she can try to extract information. She's asking her, where are the timekeepers? And she's like, oh, they're by the gold elevators. Well, so what we find out with that reveal, and they extrapolate on it more later in the episode, is that these are not people who were just created by the timekeepers. These were humans, at least most of them. We don't know. There could be people of other different species in this time TVA world or whatever. But, this character in general was a human who had a real human life on Earth prior to being a part of the TVA. So that's juicy. It's perhaps the only big juicy thing that we got in this episode, but it's a big one.
Yeah, because you're right. A lot of it, again, that was part of the underwhelming part. Like we spent a whole episode on this planet in the Snowpiercer train in this just destructive environment, and then we left on a cliffhanger at the same planet. So it was so exciting going in, because we're like, where are we going? And then by the end of the episode, we're like, we haven't gone very far.
Literally
physically.
Nowhere. Yeah.
Yeah, and I like how you said nowhere. So like as they're actually going through that final technical spectacle, right? It looks like the planet Nowhere, just this decrepit cesspool almost. And it was like, wait, are we on Lamentus? Is Nowhere connected to this? Nowhere, the planet that we see in Guardians of the Galaxy and part of Marvel lore. I don't know if you had that feeling as well when we got to that scene.
Yeah, I mean, this was a planet that I had not heard of. I don't know. Maybe some of you Marvel diehards out there can correct me, but I've never come across it in any sort of reading that I've done. But I certainly haven't read every comic ever. But yeah, it definitely had a different vibe. It felt like there must be some sort of significance for this planet. I mean, for them, they're still going to be on this planet that's dying heading into the next episode. So who knows what's going to happen there? But it definitely had a different vibe to it.
Excellent. And that Minute Woman who was being grilled in her own mind by Sylvie, her name is Sasha Lane. She was recently on the Amazon reboot of the Utopia.
Yeah.
And that series, it had its ups and downs. From what I hear, it wasn't as good as the original. I haven't had a chance to watch that, but ultimately I think she was spot on and just a stellar actress in that entire series. So I was super pumped to see her show up at the end of the last episode, that we got a lot of her in this one. I don't know if we're going to see her in another one here. I don't want to look into the IMDb future and see if she's got
I know, right? You
credits.
gotta avoid that.
But it would be super cool if she outlives just Loki and moves on into the MCU in some regard, because I think she is perfect, a perfect actress for this series and for this universe.
Yeah.
So this is great. This is wonderful. I'm ready to speculate on everything. Please, what do you want to talk about first? I want to say, where do we go from the cliffhanger? That's where my mind is just like echoing right now. What happens? Is there an escape pod? Is there a Deus Ex Machina moment where someone in a ship or another portal, Owen Wilson pops in and says, "Wow, you almost got destroyed." So
Yeah.
what's on your mind where this heads next after this cliffhanger here?
Well, I have to admit, after the episode ended, my head spun for a good 24 hours about what the heck is going on here. And here's where I think I've arrived. And I don't know that it's like a fully baked conclusion or theory, but I think it's as good as I'm going to get before the next episode comes out. But basically, I feel like the fact that they leave our heroes or main characters stranded on this planet, and they show you there is no way out. The TemPad is gone. The ship just got smashed by this like planet that's coming down on it. Like, this is it, end of the road. I feel like what has to happen in the next episode is that whatever is going on with the TVA and everything that's happening there, we're going to get some sort of huge revelation in the next episode.
Mm-hmm.
My working theory right now is something that I mentioned in the last episode, where this whole thing is some sort of construct of Kang, right? Like, there's a reason that middle timekeeper, again, I feel like looks exactly like Kang. And I think that what's going to happen is it's going to be revealed that Kang is behind this. I don't know that it'll be revealed next episode that Kang is behind this, but I think it will be revealed next episode that the TVA, as we know it, is not what we think it is. That there's something else at play here, and that they have some sort of need for these Lokis. There's some reason for it, because it's hard to explain otherwise. Like, if this is all just like, so if we're working off the theory that this is some sort of construct of Kang's creation, that these are not the real timekeepers, that it's actually Kang manipulating reality, because let's back up a little bit. If we think about Kang as a character, he has a vested interest in something like a sacred timeline. Something that is consistent, that he controls, something that he can create realities and govern the timeline in the way that he wants to. That's what he's all about. He's a time-hopping, crazy guy. He wants to be able to bounce all over the place. And
Hold on, I want a shirt that says that. A time-hopping crazy guy.
I mean, he is. That's probably the like lamest way to describe him, but it's true.
I love it.
It makes it easiest for him if he can bounce back and forth along the same timeline and kind of keep things in control. So that's why I feel like he's behind this. But if that's the case, he has to want something from one of these or both of these Lokis. Otherwise, why not have his TVA time cops just melt them and clean up his timeline and move on from it? I feel like there has to be something bigger at play, or maybe he doesn't care about them, but Sylvie just blew everything up and now they definitely care. So I think the TVA is going to come for these Lokis, and then after that, there's going to be some sort of big reveal.
Right. So Kang is obviously a mastermind for being able to manipulate all of these timelines, right? So it must be that in this version of this variant timeline that something has to occur that he can't be a part of, that he has to kind of tweak things and prod things. And he's like, oh, they'll be my puppets. I'll get them to do it. And I'll just like drop little obstacles along the way that they have to figure out, that ultimately leads me to my goal. Because otherwise, Kang, this mastermind manipulator of time and realities and everything that he can do, why wouldn't he just do it? Why wouldn't he just wipe out the TVA? He needs that construct to get to his goal, right? Like that's how I'm feeling it here with what you're saying. So it's fascinating, and it just again speaks to the genius of the Marvel writers from the comic book level and now the screenwriting level too.
Yeah, and I think we know that going forward there can't be a sacred timeline. It just can't exist. It can't be a thing because it limits everything that they're trying to do. We know that Wanda's up to no good with her, basically what do they call it? Hex magic, that she's doing. She's got the demon book thing. She's sitting in her cabin on the mountain. She's talking to different timelines, different realities. She's cutting through the astral plane, whatever. So she's messing with time. We got Doctor Strange. We know he has a movie coming out called In the Multiverse of Madness. And we have strong suspicions that our friends in the Sony Marvelverse with Spider-Man are about to get real weird with some multiverse stuff. So the sacred timeline must be gone by the end of this series, and it potentially already is based on what Sylvie just did in episode 2. But yeah, this whole thing has to come down. This whole thing has to collapse in on itself.
Indeed. Do we think that Sylvie is some sort of Nexus being, or maybe like a level below a Nexus being because of her ability to enchant, or is it not the same thing because she's still a Loki?
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but so I don't know that she's a Nexus being. I think she really is just a Loki, and a pretty clever one, as I would imagine most of them are. But do we really know what her intentions were with blowing everything up yet?
No,
I don't feel like that was answered in this episode at all.
No, she kept dodging the question. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like that question is still very open, in my opinion. It's, is Sylvie working for someone else? Is she truly just on her own and trying to cause chaos? What is the end goal here? Did she have a run-in with the TVA a while ago and is like, I'm going to blow the lid off this whole thing? This is messed up. I don't know. But I do think that we're supposed to like her, and that we're supposed to be starting to trust her in terms of her intentions and whatnot, and that we're going to want some sort of finale that involves her and our Loki working together and maybe even beyond this show. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yes. What if we find out that in episode 4 or 5 that it was not Sylvie, but it was Agatha all along, and she just this is actually happening before WandaVision, and Agatha played with this timeline, pretended to be this Lady Loki, and then it didn't work out for whatever reason, and then she was like, all right, what's going on over there? And what is it, Pennsylvania, wherever they landed, and built the house? What if she goes over there and says, all right, this is big. This is what I'm feeling. How about that for speculation?
I mean, I think people would be decently mad about that. It's I just do, because I think people were somewhat underwhelmed. I mean, everybody I feel like really liked WandaVision that I've talked to, but felt like there was more that could have been done there, that there should have been a villain or an antagonist bigger than Agatha pulling the strings and things like that. So I feel like that would make people a little bit upset, but I don't know. What is interesting on the WandaVision front, I don't know if you've seen this, comicbook.com, a few other Reddit sleuths had started to point out over the weekend that the end credits scene in WandaVision, where she's in the cabin, has been edited. Okay.
What?
So the Doctor Strange theme song has been added in some way, musically tied in to that music that plays, and the mountainside has been digitally edited to look a little bit different, which makes you think that. And there's also rumors that you can see Doctor Strange floating down the side of the mountain. I have not been able, when I watch it, I don't see it, but there are people saying that you can see him floating down the mountain. But the question becomes, why would they edit that scene? If they really did add in the Doctor Strange music, is it because they're going to show this exact scene in that movie and they're going to show, Doctor Strange? And so they had to line up the scenes digitally, you guys added more trees, so we need to make it look like that. Or is this just a George Lucas thing where it's I don't like that. We need to edit it. We need to clean it up, because we know that these shows, so when Loki episode 1 aired, they were still working on and editing the Loki finale. The show wasn't done. And that's the same with WandaVision. They were still working on the show as episodes were being released. So it's quite possible they're just we're at a deadline. We'll finish this scene later. And they're it's good enough for now. I don't know. But that seems maybe significant. I don't know.
The next 24 hours of my life will be dedicated to watching that scene over and over again.
Yeah. So
amazing.
What the big conspiracy theorists are starting to say is like Marvel did this on purpose because the Loki show has changed the timeline. And so there are material facts that have changed about that scene, including what the mountainside looks like and what the music is. I don't know. That's what people are saying. It feels like it could be significant. Again, we talked about, I think on episode 1 and episode 2 of our Loki recaps so far, that this show, in our opinion, and I think many others, is on a collision course with that Doctor Strange movie in the same way that WandaVision was, and they're all going to sort of converge there. So that's why I think that whole scene change thing is relevant to the Loki show, because maybe that truly is what's happening. Maybe they said, now that Loki has changed the timeline, we have to go change this scene. I wouldn't put it past Marvel. They've certainly shown outrageous attention to detail so far. Mm-hmm. So.
And I wonder what, at the end of, to hook back to Spider-Man, as we know, at the end of Far From Home, Peter Parker's, swinging around, and then we get the announcement from J. Jonah, right, that says, hey, Peter Parker is Spider-Man. I wonder, when that moment lines up, what affected it, right? Obviously, it wasn't just, he just decided, and it wasn't just what Peter Parker had done with Mysterio. It has to be bigger than that, has to be greater than that, has to be tied into all of this. So what triggered it, and will we get an idea of what just ricochets it, or did we already see it with Sylvie blowing up all the timelines? Did that trigger that? I don't know. Was Mysterio supposed to live? I still think he's alive in that, obviously, but was it supposed to be a greater victory? And when that thing blew up, everything shifted, right? Man,
it's all
just
tied.
So much.
I mean, it sounds ridiculous to talk about Spider-Man, but really it's all going to tie in, because we know that Benedict Cumberbatch is in that Spider-Man movie. It was one of the first castings that was ever announced. And I think people are starting to forget about that whenever we think about the whole, Green Goblin, Doc Ock. People are getting distracted by the fact that Doctor Strange is in that movie, okay? Mm-hmm. And we know that Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is supposed to be this crazy multiverse comic book event, almost like an Avengers level type movie. Mm-hmm. And we know that Loki and WandaVision are heading in that direction. So all these shows and movies really do tie in that way, particularly when you talk about WandaVision, Loki, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and Spider-Man. I think that core 4 is some sort of somewhat connected story arc that's gonna wrap. And I think that Doctor Strange is gonna be the one behind opening up the multiverse in that Spider-Man movie.
Yes. And then we're going to get, of course, Thor, Love and Thunder, which, his brother, it's going to tie into there greatly as well. And with Christian Bale's villain character, remind me who he was playing again?
The God Butcher. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just all so much. My brain can't take it anymore, Cam. It can't take it. And I'm ready for all of these movies to drop. We've got Black Widow coming up, and who knows what that's going to do to our minds and our timelines.
The new trailers for the Black Widow keep saying the future starts with her past, and I'm like, what does that mean?
Oh, man.
Like, there has to be a reason this movie's coming out now.
There has to be. And I bet it's going to be more perfectly timed now than it would have if it had been able to come out sometime in 2020. And Kevin Feige is just counting his bank account pennies. And he is also rubbing his hands together maniacally like, mwahaha, wait till you see this. So I'm so excited. I'm ready to speculate more. I'm ready to get more details next week on episode 4 of 6 of Loki. We have crossed the halfway point. It's going to be great. We'll play you out today with Rhetoric, our original music from our original band. No, we didn't create them, but we know them very well. Cam, my co-host, can't do this without you. Thank you so much. We will see you next week.
Peace.